Good Thursday, everybody. Welcome into the Porch. It is a Volquest baseball podcast presented by my friends, and they could be yours as well. Spivey King and Spivey, LLP. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That's TN Trial Lawyers. Free consultation by picking up the phone today and dialing 423-245-4185. That is Spivey King and Spivey, LLP, attorneys at law. All right, we got a fun show coming up today. We've got VFL Luke Lipsius here in a couple of minutes. We'll call it 5 to 7 minutes here. He's going to break down Knoxville Regional, Tennessee making quick work of Northern Kentucky, of Indiana, of Southern Miss. A lot of Northerns, a lot of Southerns here in NCAA baseball tournaments. But Tennessee made quick work of them, winning 33-12, I believe was the combined score. He'll touch on that. He'll look ahead to Evansville. What's interesting about this Purple Aces team and their path to super regional play. He'll kind of get in the mindset of breaking down a big-time favorite versus Cinderella, all that and more that's coming up. And then later in the show, to end the show, we'll talk with the voice of the Purple Aces. That is Jevin Redmond. He's going to join me here on the porch. Actually, join me on my podcast, Locked On Balls. If you're watching and listening and haven't checked out Locked On Balls, I encourage you to do so. It's every single weekday, 30 minutes or less. Shameless plug, but I'm going to play that here for us on the porch as well. So a couple of guests, just like last week, to get us set for Tennessee and Evansville for super regional play. All right, so a couple of things to knock out of the park real quick. Let's go ahead and tell you about Evansville becoming the 9th ever number 4 seed to advance on to super regional play. So it's in rare territory here. It's 38 wins on the season, tied for the 6th most in program history. This is the first NCAA tournament appearance for Evansville since 2006. And it's just really a good story. You know, as Jevin will tell us here later in the show, it's a team filled with a bunch of seniors, a bunch of fifth-year seniors and true seniors, and they came really close to winning the Missouri Valley Conference last year and couldn't get it done. They all wanted to come back for a last ride, and that's what they did. They finished tied for second in the regular season for the Missouri Valley Conference, entered the tournament, hosted the tournament, but entered the tournament as the 3 seed, and outlasted Indiana State to win the Missouri Valley Conference. Then, of course, we know they're the 4 seed in the Greenville Regional, and all that talks about Eastern Carolina, really all that talks about number 2 seed Wake Forest, and all Evansville does is knock off the host school in Game 1, took down the 3 seed in VCU in Game 2, and then in the championship game, took one to the chin against Eastern Carolina. Eastern Carolina had to beat them twice, and they won that Sunday game like 19-6 or whatever. But then you had Evansville that responded on Sunday or Monday. At points in times did not play very good baseball, but came back and held off Eastern Carolina, the host school, by a final score of 6-5. Was down at one point in 5-2, and a 3-run home run by a guy we'll mention here in a moment. Put him ahead for good. So it's a team that has been resilient. It's a team that you don't make it this far on accident, as I'll speak with Luke on here in a moment. But it is a team that, if Tennessee is playing Tennessee baseball, Tennessee should handle Evansville. And Tennessee should punch its 3rd ticket to Omaha in the last 4 years. That is of my opinion. Not saying that Evansville doesn't have talent. Again, you don't make it this far on accident. They got some players, and they'll be challenging at points in times. But if Tennessee plays to Tennessee's capabilities, this should be a 2-and-done on Omaha, in my opinion. The game. So, for fans, it's not great. And I do feel for fans. Friday is going to be a tough draw to get to the ballpark. 3 o'clock Eastern time is the start time. All right? Saturday, it's just like an early nooner, right? It's an early nooner, like football season. It's not a nooner. The game starts at 11, but you're getting over there on campus early on. You're tailgating. I mean, it's kegs and eggs time, right? So, that game starts at 11 o'clock on Saturday. Both of those games will be on ESPN2. If there is a need for a Game 3 in this series, that will come on Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, and it'll be televised on ESPNU. Theoretically, I mean, the same could be said for Evansville if they take Tennessee in 2 games, but Tennessee could punch its ticket to Omaha. It could be the first team to punch its ticket to Omaha by mid-Saturday afternoon before some super regionals have even started. So an opportunity to go ahead and handle some business and go ahead and prepare for what's to come. But again, you got to do what's in front of you first, and so that's very, very important. Evansville. So we learned a little bit about who they are and how it advanced to supers. I'll tell you a little bit about the offense. Well, real quick before we get into that, Evansville did take on a couple SEC teams, 3 to be in fact, came up winless in all of those. Vanderbilt beat the Purple Aces 7-3. That was back in February. Mississippi State swept them in Starkville in mid-March, and then Kentucky beat them in March the 19th. And none of these games were really particularly close. One game in Mississippi State was pretty close, but outside of that, they were all kind of lopsided there. What stands out about Evansville? Well, I think the bats are what stands out about Evansville. First team all MVC outfielder Mark Schellenberger, really good player, knocking on the door of 400. He's hitting 390 on the year, 17 homers, 63 RBI. He was an honorable mention designated hitter. Kip Fergarosi, I don't think that's how you pronounce it, but we'll get it this weekend. He's batting 350 with a team high 21 home runs and 66 RBI. So those two guys are hotter than hiccup right now. Those two guys are playing really, really well and sit in the heart of that Evansville order. That's Mark Schellenberger and Kip Fergarosi. The most outstanding player of the conference tournaments 2 weeks ago was second baseman Cal McGinnis. He's third on the team with a 337 average. Outfielder Harrison Tobert is at 301 with 9 homers and 49 RBI. Leadoff man and shortstop Simon Sherry. He's sitting just under, a shade under 300 at 297, but it's time for the team lead with 16 stolen bases, as with outfielder Ty Rumsey. So those are some of the highlights of the players that are in that lineup for Evansville. They don't play an awful lot of a lot of players. If you kind of look at Tennessee's stat sheet, sure, Tennessee's gotten a ton of players in there, in blowouts and whatnot. But Tennessee does, they play like 4 guys at designated hitter, right? And there's a bit of a bigger rotation for Tennessee compared to Evansville. Evansville doesn't play that many players, but they've been really, really good this year. It's a team, as Jevin, the voice of the Purple Aces, will mention later in the show. It's like 11 seniors, and half of which are like super seniors. I mean, they're a really, really good ball club. You look at the pitchers, and it's a team that is. Oh, by the way, the average is like 300 for Evansville, so a good hitting team. The pitchers, team ERAs at like 5.95, so it's nothing great, but the guy Tennessee's going to see on Friday is really good. A true freshman in Kenton Deverman, 9-1, 3.81 ERA, really, really solid. 17 appearances, 15 starts, 3.81 ERA, a team high 106 innings and a third. Again, as a true freshman, he struck out 81 batters. He's walked 20. Opponents are hitting 259 against him. He's had a really, really solid season for a true freshman. Started the year in the number 3 role, and then, of course, moved to the Friday night role. He is a lefty, and as my guest will tell you here in a moment, not a high velo guy, which is kind of scary for guys like Tennessee, right? Kind of sitting in the upper 80s to 90, but crafty, good breaking balls. We'll see what he looks like on Thursday. He will get the ball on Thursday. Friday. I keep getting the days mixed up. On Saturday, it is probable that it'll be another lefty for the Purple Aces, and Donovan Schultz. He's 6-2 on the year, but that ERA is at 5.84. He's a senior, again a southpaw. He's made every start this season, 16 starts in 16 weeks, 89 innings and a third on the year. 6-2 record, 5.84 ERA. He struck out 72 batters. He's walked 32. He's given up 42 extra base hits, 27 doubles, 15 home runs. Opponents are hitting 273 against him. So, on paper, it shows me that you can take him deep. You can take him for extra bases. The slugging percentage is high against a guy like Donovan Schultz. Shane Harris is the swingman in the bullpen for the Purple Aces. 8-6 ERA, 360. 8-6 is the record. 363 ERA. He's logged 72 innings on the year, 25 appearances, 6 starts. He could be a guy that would start Game 3, but he's kind of like that Nate Snead to where they're going to use him in Games 1 and 2 most likely. He's a really, really good player. Again, can do all the different stuff on the right side, and he's very versatile. Swingman, very much like Nate Snead or like AJ Causey in terms of versatility. You got Jacob Meyer, who's a fifth-year senior righty. He leads the team with 27 appearances and 5 saves. However, he has an ERA of 6.13, which is not very good. Then there's a guy, Nick Smith, and if you watched the game on Monday, Nick Smith actually started the game. He was an all-Missouri Valley Conference pitcher 2 years ago. He's had some injuries. He's not the same guy anymore. 2-5 is the record this year, a 12.90 ERA, which is not great. However, he did step up big, gave him 4 innings in Monday's regional finale game. gave up 4 earned runs. But that is another guy to pay attention to that can kind of be used in different situations, but the numbers are not great this year. Again, Evansville sits number 145th in the country with an ERA of 5.95. So that's kind of the scout on Evansville. That's what they look like on paper, but as we know, you don't play this game on paper, right? You got to go out there and get some things done. We'll tell you more about how Tennessee can overcome, what's on paper here and move on to Omaha and what that can look like, and it's really, really exciting. I can't wait to see what happens this weekend. But first, some news in terms of team news. A.J. Russell, Tony Vitello announced on Wednesday that he's pretty much, likely. I think the direct quote, I haven't written at Volquest.com, but I think his direct quote was essentially more than likely done for the season. So no surprise at this point. He wasn't on the regional active roster. They're going to sit down, let him rest, and try to figure out what's going on here in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. But a lot of speculation. There's always conspiracy theories on the general's quarters, which is a bit nuts at times. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he's a pitcher. He got hurt. They shut him down. He rested. He's cleared. Everything checked out. Trainers cleared him. Coaches cleared him. Family cleared him. AJ cleared himself. Came back. Got hurt again. Did the same thing. I mean, it's not like he would be out there pitching if he was hurt. At this day and age, when you got an arm like A.J. Russell's, it's not just a Tony Vitello decision, okay? It's Tony Vitello, it's Frank Anderson, it's A.J. Russell, it's A.J. Russell's dad. There's a lot of people that are involved here, okay? Nobody was being, nobody was treating this like it was, second tier. If I don't know what I'm trying to say. I mean, fact of the matter is, he was out there because he was cleared and he was healthy enough to pitch. But obviously, something's off right there, and it's something that's not being picked up on MRIs. And so I'm sure that at some point there's going to be exploratory surgery and kind of dig down in there and see what's going on, and you hope the best. But what we do know right now is he's not going to be on the active roster this weekend, and likely not for Omaha if Tennessee were to advance. So that stinks, man. What a rough year for A.J. Russell, Tennessee's opening day starter that struck out 10 against Texas Tech, nationally ranked Texas Tech at the time, in just 4 innings and like a third or something. So that stinks. But again, Tennessee's made do all season long. So no A.J. Russell this weekend. A couple of guys who are going to be making at the time of this recording. I don't think anybody's been added to that list just yet, but if so, I'll put it on the general's quarters. The time of this recording, Tennessee's set to have 2 guys in for official visits from the transfer portal this weekend. Cody Boker from Georgetown, who is a right-handed pitcher, and Blake Sear, I believe is how you say his name, utility from Miami. And Blake Sear is the guy that actually entered the portal last year that Tennessee had some interest in and elected to stay in South Beach with Miami. Miami's technically not in South Beach, so that's something in case you didn't know. But a guy that can play left field, guy that can play second base, and we'll see what these guys think about Tennessee this weekend. But those are some notable ones. Guys who are going to be in from the transfer portal, and if there's more added to that list, or if there's other names that get added into the interest cycle for Tennessee, I'll certainly update you guys on the general's quarters. Last thing, Wyatt Evans entered the transfer portal, no shock. Zane Denton entered the transfer portal, no shock. Again, conspiracy theories all over the place, guys. All I can say about Zane Denton is he was dealing with some personal things last fall. Okay, last summer, last fall, it stretched on in the winter, and he just went with the team. Okay, I understand as fans' curiosity. I get it, but I mean, it is what it is. Dealing with some personal things, wasn't with the team. I'm not going to go further than that. Sure, he probably looked and saw what Tennessee had on his roster and was like, man, I'm not going to get to play. Or looks what Tennessee's got coming up next year. Is like, man, I'm not going to get to play. Let me try somewhere else again. And that might be the case. But Zane Denton has entered the transfer portal. And he will look to finish his career somewhere else, his third college in about 5-6 years or whatever. So best of luck to Wyatt Evans and Zane Denton. And of course, we'll see what Tennessee does in bringing in some players via the transfer portal. All right, it's Tennessee. It is Evansville this weekend. Super regional play here from Lindsey Nelson Stadium. We'll get you set with Luke Lipsius. He is coming up next as we continue on with The Porch. It is a Volquest baseball podcast. And again, couldn't do it without our friends over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T and Trout Lawyers. They specialize in criminal defense, family law, personal injury, examples of which can be DUI, assault, divorce, alimony, parental rights, personal injuries such as car wrecks or accidents. Over 80 years of combined experience, Spivey King and Spivey LLP provides representation throughout the state and federal courts in Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience This practice has been in place for 43 years, with this partnership forming in 2012, while also having partners who are energized for today's modern legal demands. Practicing primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, as well as Hawkins County, Washington County, and the surrounding areas, this firm has won multiple awards and have attorneys who are rated by super lawyers in the Mid-South with real trial experience. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, need divorce, help with the custody of your children, or been accused of a crime, Spivey King and Spivey LLP is here to help you. Go see him in person today. That's in 142 Cherokee Street, Kingsport, Tennessee. Pick up the phone for a free consultation by dialing 423-245-4185. That is 423-245-4185, or visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Great people, big-time Tennessee fans. If you have a need, give them a call. Spivey King and Spivey LLP today. They are attorneys at law. Luke, it was business as usual for Tennessee through regional play. Never expected it to go really that smoothly, but it did. I think it's credit to Tennessee being the best team in the country. But, took down Northern Kentucky, took down Indiana, and then ran away from Southern Miss, and on to super regional play for the 4th straight season.
Yeah, that regional, it was a tough regional. Those teams were really good. I think that they didn't play really up to their potential. With that being said, I thought we looked the most dominant out of any regional team, and I'm trying to say that unbiasedly, but when you put up 33 runs and 12 homers in a regional, you're doing something crazy. And not only that, but the pitching staff did really well that regional. It was all around a very solid performance from the Vols. Nothing that we didn't expect. It's at this point we're making stuff happen where we're running on all cylinders and everyone's contributing in a way that, we saw Curley get 2 homers this week, and I don't think he hit a homer since, 2 or 3 months ago. Ensley is always that guy where if you need a big hit, he comes through. KT with a couple of huge hits. And of course, Amick, I think I predicted it last week, a big weekend for him. But yes, it's all these guys they're coming together and they're just playing how we know they can. It's against a bunch of really good teams in that regional.
You forgot the best one of them all, man, the MVP, Dylan Dreiling.
Yeah, Dreiling had quite a weekend, but that's what I'm saying. It's like it's these guys who you just expected out of them. Dreiling hits a 10-foot off the ground homer, and it's like, whatever. I've seen it before. But yeah, no, that the offense was pretty close to as perfect as it could have been.
Yeah, to your point too, like it's not like it was 3 games, so it's not a big sample size, but it's not like Moore and Berg and Billy were bad, because Billy had those 2 home runs. Those were his only hits of the weekend, but one was a grand slam and had 7 RBI. Moore homered once. Berg had a couple hits, but their averages were pretty low. Yeah. Simo hit 308, but that's low for him compared to the heart of the order and the bottom of the order. That were just incredible. How about Cal Stark as well? I know he had a couple home runs, and of course they broke y'all's record there of the single season home runs. That was his second, actually, was the record breaker. Yep. But really the heart and the bottom of the order came through, and that's great to see this time of the year.
And it's exactly what you need to see, because there was no questions about the top 3 or 4 or whatever, but the middle and bottom is where you kind of are like, okay, yeah, they're going to get their hits, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't just get hits. They came up in big situations. They had power. The one thing, the DH role is going to be kind of up in the air. I think Bargo got robbed on Sunday. That was one of those games where the wind did play a factor. I actually have it wrote down that, Burke and Amick might have gotten robbed as well. But it's one of those things where that's really the only kind of question now. But even then, they're doing good enough where it's not, putting us out of games. If they were coming up bases loaded, striking out, that kind of thing. Then it would be worrisome. But, I just think that the guys there and that team that Villa's built with all of his coaching staff this year, it's a bunch of gamers and really they just don't care. And even those bottom of the order guys, they're just coming alive when they need to.
What did you think about Xander Seacrest, his start? He gave up, he went 4 innings and a third. And by the time he left the game, I don't think he wasn't in position to win the game. But all 3 runs he gave up were unearned. He took 105 off the side of his leg, right above his knee, stayed in the game, struck out the next guy. It's not like it was a Cy Young award-winning start there for Xander, but he's gritty, man. He's gritty, and I'm so happy that he's having all the success that he's having this year, because he's that guy that could have left. He's that guy that could have went somewhere else and been in the rotation a long time ago, and still even now he's still being asked to do a little bit different than giving the ball saying, all right, go give me 5 or 6. It's go get me however many you can get me. I don't know. His start on Sunday was just gritty, and him getting up after getting come back to 105 miles an hour was just typical Xander to me.
Yeah, that. So it's a testament to him and just that culture. That I think you put any of the guys out there, they get up, and they try at least their hardest to continue to pitch. Xander, what he did was pretty crazy, just being so successful after getting hit by 105. But from that point on, it's almost like the game is ours. There's just too much momentum after that. It would have taken something crazy for us to lose that game. And you even see it got solidified when KT hit the homer. But what Xander did, giving us 4 1/3, not flawless, but really, really good pitching. And then Snead afterwards also. But it's so great to see out of Xander because, like we've mentioned it before on previous podcasts, he's become more of a starter than an opener, even though he is fairly limited. It's awesome to see him coming alive down the stretch. I think we should expect more of that down the stretch because he's one of those guys that, through the middle of the season, even keel might get you batted around, but in the playoffs, even keel will get you wins.
Yeah, no doubt. And so it feels like every weekend, in the SEC tournament, I guess it was both Loy on Sunday and Marcus Phillips there, I guess on Thursday or whatever day it was. But it was Andrew Binky on Saturday that came in. Beam, not his best start. It's wild. He's so good. He's so professional. But it's like when you're spotted 5, 6, 7 runs or whatever, it's like Beam doesn't pitch well in those situations. But nonetheless, Binky comes in. Binky was really, really good. And so it's like you still want consistency from that 3, the Loy, the Binkies, the Phillips. But they've all stepped up at some point the last 2 weeks. And heading into postseason play, it's like, okay, well, at least I've seen him do it. Come out here and do it again. And it was Binky's turn the other night, and that was awesome to see.
Yeah, I'll touch on Beam for a little bit because I was thinking about this. It seems like the duo of Cal and Beam, they get into trouble with some pitch selection. Like there's been times where it's like, dude, the guy just swung over, 2 sliders in a row, and then he hits a heater. I'm like, what are we doing? And I think in these instances, Cal is calling the game because he has so much trust in them and Beam. But it wasn't his best start, and I think that's because we expect so much from Beam. Still a solid start, but then Banky was a superhero of Saturday. Like you said, he's kind of that third head of the 3-headed dragons that was just waiting to come up and do something big, and we saw it. I think it was close to 4 innings, and I don't think he gave up a run that was his. So it was absolutely awesome to see from him, and just another confidence booster. And sucks to see Phillips not do well, but he does have performances to lean back on that he'll have to grab from down the stretch in the Super Regional. I mean, that environment in the Super is going to be unbelievable, and then hopefully we make it even further. It's going to be even more unbelievable. So these 3 guys that we've needed to step up have down the stretch, and it's absolutely awesome. That's not to say Kirby and Combs didn't pitch great. They did what they did, but I think it's those 3 guys that we needed to see have really good outings, and they've all had that one extended, really, really good outing that they can lean back on.
Because again, you drop a game in Omaha or drop a game in regional play, if you got to fight your way back. Even if you go the length in Omaha, those guys are gonna have to step up and pitch for you. And so it's like you know what you got in Combs and Snead and Causey and Kirby. They're like in another area for me. It's these 3 that's like, okay, at some point someone's going to have to come in here and step up big for you. And so, like, you need some confidence. And I think you're getting confidence more and more in all 3 of those guys. You said something that made me think a little bit. And I know that each situation's different. Each year is different. And I know you're not a pitcher. But, Frank calls the games. But how often does he give a guy like Drew Beam and Cal Stark, 2 veterans, the leeway to, okay, you do it yourself, or – if you see something here, you do this. What's that relationship, that leeway like?
So there's a select few guys, and normally it's like one battery a season that gets that free hand of the catcher's going to call the game, and the pitcher's going to call it with him. And I think the 2021 year it was Chad and Pav, although I think Chad liked Anderson to call. But then I can't remember who it was in 22, but there's just one duo that the staff trusts enough that they feel, hey, Cal's thinking how I am, they might differ a little bit, but I think that is the case with Beam and Cal because I've seen Coach A pitch games, and there's just pitches that I'm like, that is not what he would call. There's no way you're behind that pitch. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he's just switching things up. But yeah, I think that Beam and Cal have earned the right also to get that leeway. Just Beam's such a veteran on the staff, and then Cal, I think, just being a leader and having that repertoire. The announcers always talk about how good he is with the umpires and with his pitchers. He's always hyping them up. And I think that they really like catching him and they trust him.
Yeah, I mean that battery, and I'm sure as the season goes on, you might get more of a leash. It's probably not first start. All right, guys, you got it. It's probably Frank,
Exactly.
but like this year, it's got to be Beam because there's been so much. There's been stability on both sides of Beam here lately, but like at the beginning, there was so much movement, and then in 2022, that's interesting because maybe Doe got it as the year went on, but like Burns and Beam were both freshmen. I am sure that they would be calling their own games at that point, right? But
yeah, no, there's no way.
what do I know? But that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, you see Evansville now. I mean, again, former players like yourself, media like me, fans that are consuming this podcast, we see the bracket. We see Evansville. I mean, the path, Luke, is good.
Yeah.
But that's when you get in trouble a little bit. As a competitor, as a guy in that dugout where you guys were favored in so many games or series, how do you go about navigating like, hey, we're huge favorites in this series, but we gotta approach it like it's another SEC series?
Yeah, so it's so hard because you want to say it's the same game, same team, prepare the same, blah, 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 which you do prepare the same. But then when you get there, you realize like this is not who we've been playing all year, and you got to kind of sweep that away. What I think that this team has that 2022 team did not have is experience. They came into this basically exact same situation. I think Notre Dame was a little bit better than Evansville just because, veteran status, all that good stuff.
I think because they were also a 2 seed. I think Notre Dame was a lot better than Evansville, but anyway.
Yeah. So either way. But yeah, you got a team that you don't expect to make it. They basically have America on their side. Nobody wants to see a number 1 seed advance. And then also I watched a couple games that they played. For one, it's just crazy that they were the 2-0 team as a 4 seed, but then also that they had no business winning that Monday game against ECU. ECU basically gave it to them. But either way, you look at the way they play, and they are playing very free, very exciting baseball. And it's one of those things where I hope that they're watching it. They're seeing the same things that we are, because that's a dangerous, dangerous team. They're playing with house money, nothing to lose. They're going to go out there and they're going to have fun with it, because who expected them to be here? If they lose, who cares? If they win, oh my God, keep it going. So it's one of those teams where if you've been around the game, you kind of shy away, ooh, this is going to be a tough team. But then also, with that being said, if we play just our style of baseball, we don't get too big of heads, we stay focused, I mean, we're going to have a repeat of the regional. So it's one of those things where, you just have to stay focused and try not to think about all the hoopla that's going on around you.
The radio voice of Evansville is going to come on the show after you. I actually pre-recorded it. He said the same thing. It's like, these guys know they're playing with house money right now. I mean, they're going to go out there and try to compete and win and everything, but they knew that on Monday, if they lost, that their season was still a great success. Mm-hmm. So really, there's no pressure on them. All the pressure's on Tennessee. I mean, already number 1 overall seed anyway, but all the pressure would be on Tennessee. But you said experience, and I completely agree. Sure, you went to Omaha the year before in 2022. I recognize that. But, thinking about these veterans that are on the team, some of the guys that you even played with. Mm-hmm. I know you didn't they were on the team. They were freshmen. Burke, Semo, Xander was on that team. Ensley was on that team. Some of these guys who have really, this is just the norm for them. So I feel like, not even taking Evansville in consideration, but playing this late in the year, the stage, Omaha was in reach. I just feel like this team is okay, let's just go play, right? It's not oh my God, look at it's been here, done that, right?
Exactly. And you can see it in their faces. It's this stoic confidence that it's so scary. When you watch it on TV, you're all right, these guys got it. There's never really a doubt, which is really awesome to see. And I think that comes from that 2022 team and the 2023 team, because the 2023 was basically, hangover. Oh, we're the best. Come get us. And they got, and then they finally, turn it around halfway through the season. But this team, the whole season has just been, heads down. We're going to do our thing. We're going to showboat, just enough. But in the end, it's about business. And I know those guys want it more than anything that we're on that 2022 team to make it to Omaha. And I think Kirby might be the only one that's been to Omaha on that team.
Yeah, he pitched that year, right?
Yeah, he was there in 21.
Yeah.
I think Xander might have been there as well.
Xander was on the team. I don't know if he pitched.
Yeah, but either way, those guys are looking at the chops to kind of avenge that, what happened in 22, and then also ride on what they did the back half of 23. And like you said, we've been there, done that. Let's make it back.
I look at the bracket. You got to take care of this weekend. I mean, you get to Omaha, boy. It's going to be, this is the year it's going to be an extended stay, in my opinion. I'm not saying they're going to win it all. I would pick Tennessee to win just because I think Tennessee's the best team in the country, and there's no reason not to pick Tennessee. But take care of business this weekend. And again, just the way the bracket falls, man, I feel like this could be an extended stay in Omaha. But before we get into all that, maybe next week if we do a podcast, hopefully, we can talk about that. You brought up Evansville, man, kind of the way they play. Pretty good players, right? They're second in the nation in doubles. They've set team records for home runs, for runs scored, for doubles and all that. 38 wins is the sixth most in program history. But kind of like what you were saying with Northern Kentucky last week, it's like, well, how good are you? You're about to see pitching you've never seen before and all that. But, Mark Schallenberger's a really good player. Kip Forknoser, I don't know how to say his name. He's a really good player. They got a couple of arms. Man, that Schallenberger guy, he's almost hitting 400. So they got two guys that are really, really hot at the top. Yep. And then they got a couple of arms in their freshman who's probably going to start on Friday, Kenton Deverman. Crafty lefty, 9-1, 381 ERA. Again, a true freshman. They got some boys. I mean, again, you don't make it this far on accident. Sure, you need to go on some runs and everything, but like, they're a talented team, and I mean, they're obviously going to give their best punch at Tennessee.
And then you hit it on the head. You don't make it this far by accident. That's exactly right. If they weren't meant to be here, they wouldn't be here. And I think that's the baseball god saying they're not only a good team, but they're also a team that plays right. They play well, and everyone wants to see them. But yeah, like you said, every team is going to have dudes, and this team does have dudes. But again, you talk about what we face as far as offenses. Everyone, like Northern Kentucky, had the fifth best offense in the nation, and they didn't do that well against us. Because these teams that we've already played, and even like the outliers, which would be like a Northern Kentucky, who is like, hey, you guys don't play in the SEC every day. What are your stats like? We know that, hey, we are good enough to beat a mid-major really good offense, and even so, I'd expect them to put some runs up on the board. Crafty lefties do scare me a little bit, but I think we're hitting lefties a lot better this year than in years past. So we've seen it all. To this point, we've seen it all, and that's what the players need to tell themselves and just have some confidence.
Yeah, no doubt. How do you see this weekend playing out in terms of? I would assume you're going to pick Tennessee to win, but is this I honestly think that if Tennessee comes in and just plays its game, there's no reason that there'll be a third game. I know that's not how it always works out sometimes, but 3:00 game early on Friday, 11:00 in the morning on Saturday. That goes to show you what the networks think about this series. Yeah. How do you think it's going to go?
I mean, I hate making predictions because I feel like I'm traumatized from last year. It seems like every time I made a prediction, it went wrong. But I just want to see boring baseball out of us, and I love the home runs and all that, but the errors in the postseason and the walks and the little things are what come to haunt you. And like we saw it even in the back half of that Indiana game, they just kept on chipping away. That's where the snowball can just keep on rolling. So and not to say we haven't been playing well, we had a couple blips on Sunday, but I just want to see this team keep playing boring baseball and just keep on winning as they have been.
Boring baseball can get you some dubs, and when this time of the year, you're going to keep on playing. So, yeah,
exactly.
I'm right there.
Exactly. That's all that matters.
Want to go completely off subject here as we end your little hit here. We know that Simo, Burke, Billy and Simo likely going to be first-round picks. We know Burke's going to be up there. KT will be drafted. Dylan's going to be drafted. I want to ask you about Inslee, who's draft eligible, Causey, and Combs. In my mind, I've got Combs and Causey getting selected, and they're going to go.
Yep.
In my mind, I have Inslee coming back, but I mean, if Inslee keeps playing, man, maybe somebody will take a flyer on him. And you got to remember too, like if you come back as a senior, you lose your leverage. So like
Mhm.
that's a lot to think about in the draft process as well. So for Combs, Causey, and Inslee, it's like if it's good enough now, you got to go almost. But what do you think about their draft profiles?
So Causey, I think, is the best out of all of them. Just the way he's thrown this year, you think about it, a low 90s righty, and you're like, oh, I don't like that. But then you see the movement he has on his balls, his pitchability, and his confidence
Slot.
up there. Yeah, and so they're gonna like him. I would give him. He's a tough one because I just don't know how pros see him. Lucky for him, I think the pro game is going back to more sinkers. It was a spin rate there for a while. Everyone knows how to hit spin rate now, so it's going back to this. It's going to go back to spin rate at some point. But I mean, just as far as like dudes that you see on the mound, he's a starter at heart, of course. So that gives him a little bit better. I would give him, late 10 rounds, so like 9, 10. That's where I see him. Combs probably a little bit farther down. Again, stuff's really good. Weird look. I think they're going to give him a chance just because of the success he had. So it'll probably be, 12, 13, maybe 14 or something. Maybe a little bit later. I don't know. But then Ensley, I hate to say it, love the kid, but I just don't see him projecting well in the bigs. He doesn't have a good arm. He's fast, but not that fast. And then his hitting is just average. So I maybe they'll give him a chance late, like 19th round free agent deal kind of deal. But I just don't think that his tools are there enough to see him go.
And if that's the case, then I mean he's probably going to come back and play for Tennessee, and that's great for Tennessee. So
Exactly.
I was just kind of interested because like that's kind of the tiers I have. It's like, okay, well, Semo, Billy,
Yeah.
Burke, early, and I mean Dreiling and Tiers are not far
Dreiling,
behind. I mean probably
exactly.
around 3, 4, 5ish.
Yeah.
They're gonna go, and then there's that other group. So I was a little curious. All right, man. Well, appreciate you as always, and here's to hoping we talk again next week here on the Porch.
Yeah, my fingers will be crossed.
Great stuff there as always from VFL Luke Lipsius, and now a scout specifically on the Evansville Purple Aces from the voice of Evansville baseball team. This is Jevin Redmond. Here with me today is Jevin Redmond. He is the voice of the Evansville Purple Aces for Learfield IMG, and of course some ESPN Plus broadcasts as well. Jevin, thanks so much for your time, man. It's got to be a fun, exciting last couple of days for you and, of course, that program in Evansville, only the 9th number 4 seed ever to advance on to Supers.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me, and it's been a blast the last couple of weeks, and really it's been a fun group all season long. They've had a lot of talent offensively, which we'll dive into here shortly, but it's really been a whirlwind the last several weeks, going from hosting the conference tournament 2 weeks ago to winning that, and you go to regional in Greenfield, you're there basically for a full week. Now a quick turnaround, being home for 24 hours and back and run to go to Knoxville. So it's a fun problem to have, being busy with this, and looking forward to the next challenge.
So tell me, what's the MO, Evansville? You're talking to a bunch of Tennessee fans that don't know anything about your club. We're starting to dive into the stats and, of course, the history and kind of looking at your season overall. But what makes this Evansville team what it is, and what has allowed them to outlast the competition and make it to the Final 16?
Well, there's several things. We'll first start just with their goals going into the season. It's a very experienced group. They've got 11 seniors, or half are grad students, the other half are true seniors, and they've been so close to making the NCAA tournament the last couple of years. They've won 30-plus games now for 3 straight years. They've been top half of the conference, and last year they were oh so close. They took Indiana State that if-necessary game of the conference tournament. They lost up in Terre Haute, and there was really a sour taste in their mouth heading into this year, and that's kind of why this whole group stayed together and gave it one last ride. The season didn't start very strong. They were 10-16 at one point, 1-4 in the conference. They had some injuries. Pitching was a mess, both the starting rotation and in the bullpen. They got that figured out, and the offense has gotten hot here the last really month and a half. But it's a group that plays loose. They say they're playing with house money. They've already accomplished what they wanted to, which was make the NCAA tournament for the first time in 18 seasons. And they win a regional in a hostile environment. And now it's going to be cranked up a notch, or several notches, with the atmosphere in Knoxville and certainly talent level as well. But they've embraced it. They've had fun, and they're playing with house money, and they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's a couple of pitchers, one specific pitcher that I'll get to here in a moment. So I know that there's some talent on the mound, but in doing my research, looks like, second in the nation in doubles, first and foremost, school records and home runs, doubles, maybe runs scored, 6th in program history and wins. But it looks like this offense has been the consistent theme for the Purple Aces every single game out there. You've got 4 players hitting over 300, one right at 300 at 297, one that's knocking on the door of 400, and Mark Schallenberger. This offense looks like it's what makes the club go. Is that right?
It certainly is. And we said before the season started for this group, I told fans they'd have a chance to win 40 games if they stayed healthy and if their pitching, was good enough, and didn't have to be great, just had to be good because the offense would carry them some. And they've got that figured out here second half of the season. I could talk really lineup 1 through 9. There's really no break in the lineup as far as production, but the 2 batters that have been red hot, first off, Mark Schallenberger. He's a 5th-year guy that, has been very loyal to this program, hitting close to 400. He had the big 3-run home run on Monday. And that 6th inning that put Evansville in front, he's 3rd all-time in home runs in program history. But he's been steady really from day one. And Kit Fugers has been solid as well. He's a 3-hole hitter. He's been with Evansville for 2 seasons. He's an IU transfer. And he's actually 6th all-time in home runs just in 2 seasons at Evansville. But, I've never seen a guy in my time at Evansville go on the tear that he has. He's homered in 6 straight games, 8 of 9. And a solo home run in the game on Monday tied a program record for most home runs in a single season with 21. So the 2-3 punch is certainly deadly. But again, this offense can strike really 1 through 9. They play for the big inning. I mean, who doesn't? But if you go back to the conference tournament, a couple of stats real quick. The first 3 games, they run ruled their opposition. They scored 46 runs on 45 hits in just 19 innings at the plate. Was certainly very impressive in that category. Scored 54 runs over 4 games and had a pretty solid production in the regional as well. So they also in that conference tournament, real quick, they had in each of the 4 games they played, they had a 6-run or more inning in every single game. So they realized that even if they're down the game, they can strike for that big inning, and then they're never out of reach.
Look on the mound, it's kind of led by Kenton Deverman, 9-1 record, 3.81 ERA. He started 15 games, made 17 appearances. Then it would go to Donovan Schultz, who would be that game 2 starter for Saturday, I would imagine. What about those 2 guys stand out? And then who would be, in your opinion, I know it's very TBD, but who are some guys who could start that game 3 if necessary?
So we'll first start with Deverman. He's the freshman. He's the guy that's really, I don't want to say saved the season, but he's gotten the pitching rotation figured out. He was the number 3 guy to start the year. And with Nick Smith, he's had some injuries and has struggled a bit this year. He got kicked out of the rotation. Deverman became the number 1 guy. And he's passed just about every test with flying colors. The big stage doesn't really affect him. If things don't go well on Friday for him, it will not be because the stage is too big for him. He's very mature. He's more of a junior or senior in that category. But what you'll see from Deverman is he's kind of a crafty left-hander. He'll sit upper 80s with his fastball. He locates very well, works in a curve and a slider. And then he's also kind of tossed in a changeup later in the season. Doesn't use it a whole lot, but more so of a 3-pitch mix. And he's not walked a batter in 4 straight starts. So he locates well. He pitches the contact, realizes he has a good defense behind him. And then Donovan Schultz is kind of a similar story. He throws a bit harder than Deverman does. Will use his changeup more than Kenton. But Schultz, a guy that's been with the program since 2021. He's always been in the rotation either as a weekend guy or a midweek starter. He's been very strong and consistent the last 2 seasons. And for Donovan Schultz, 9 of his last 10 starts, he's gone 6 innings or more. So he's been very reliable. You'll see the 2 lefties Friday and Saturday. And then if it goes to Sunday, that's to be determined. Shane Harris has been the best arm outside of Deverman overall, but he's our swing guy to where he'll pitch Friday or Saturday if needed. If not, then he would pitch on Sunday. If Harris does pitch, then your guess is as good as mine as who would start on Sunday. But I do want to tip my cap real quick. Nick Smith, who is a local kid, he's been with the program his entire career, and he was conference pitcher of the year 2 seasons ago, was Evansville's ace last year as well. Had an offseason procedure on his ribs and just hasn't really been himself this year. But what a job he did on Monday. He got one more chance, went out there, pitched 4 strong innings against East Carolina, gave Evansville a shot. So just a feel-good moment for him, and really happy to see that.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. You played, obviously, into that Game 7 if necessary, and the Greenville Regional had to outlast the host program. How are the arms-wise? I would imagine, guys that pitch on Friday, Saturday, even Sunday for the most part will be, well-rested and everything. But who were some of those guys that pitched on outside of Smith that pitched on Monday, and who might not be available for a Friday, might have to hold them till Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, the one, I haven't confirmed this, but just my best guess with Max Hansman, who threw in the game on Monday. He came in 4 innings scoreless out of the bullpen. That would be the one that would maybe be a red flag. I don't know if he would go on Friday, but I think once you've reached this stage, it's kind of all hands on deck. Yeah. Shane Harris did throw 3 times in the regional. He threw 100-plus pitches in his first 2 outings, and then after throwing 81 pitches on Sunday, came in and pitched the 9th inning on Monday against East Carolina. I mean, your season's on the line. Why not? So I would say he'd be able to bounce back. So really, I would expect him to have a full slot of arms available. For Deverman, the starter, he's basically working on a full week's rest, so no issues there. Schultz, same thing for Saturday. So the starters are okay. Maybe Hansman, a little bit Harris, they'd be somewhat cautious. But again, you're playing the super regional. I don't think you can be too picky, and I would imagine everyone's available.
All right, last thing. If Evansville is going to pull off this upset of all upsets against obviously the number one ranked Tennessee Volunteers on the road, supers, all that, what needs to happen? Is it simply just let those bats go, outscore? Is that the path for Evansville to try to pull off this upset here in supers?
I think so in a way. Obviously, they're going to be facing the best pitching they've seen all year long too, so it'd be a big challenge for the offense. But I think for Evansville, they'll have to find a way to have a big inning at some point. And the starting pitching is going to have to continue to throw well. They're going to have to get 7-8 innings out of Deverman on Friday, probably 6 or 7 from Schultz on Saturday to try to minimize your bullpen usage. The bullpen has been a bit of a roller coaster this year. Thankfully, the last few weeks, they've been more stable with the arms of Jacob Myers, Shane Harris, and Max Hansman. But I think they'll have to get good starts from Deverman and Schultz and hopefully have a big inning at some point throughout the game. But, as far as just embracing this opportunity, Evansville can't wait to get down there. Again, they've been home for basically 24 hours. We're heading back to Knoxville after being gone for a week. And it's a group that, they're not really scared of the big moment. And I realize that the environment in Knoxville will be even more increased than what they saw in Greenville, North Carolina. But I don't really anticipate that to phase them. Tennessee is going to be more talented, but it should be a lot of fun. And they're playing with house money. And they basically came out and said, hey, if we lost on Monday in that final game of the regional, we still been very happy with the season. It was a successful season. So they played loose and went out there, and West Carroll has a line always says, go out there and play with their hair on fire. And I anticipate they'll do that this weekend.
Awesome stuff there. Good scout, good insights from Jevin Redmond joining the show. Of course, he's the voice of the Purple Aces of Evansville and getting ready for Tennessee and Evansville this weekend in super regional play. Can't wait to see what's in store this weekend. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening to us, watching us here on the Porch of Volquest Baseball Podcast. Hopefully, we're doing another one next week and then the week after that. And as we continue on here with the 2024 NCAA baseball tournament and postseason play, it's been a blast. I can't wait to see what Tennessee does this weekend. The path is there, guys. The path is there. Got to go out there and seize the day, right? We'll see if Tennessee can do that this weekend against Evansville. Big shout out to my friends over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP for making this coverage possible. If you guys have a need, pick up the phone today for a free consultation, 423-245-4185, or visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Porch, a Volquest baseball podcast.